We live in a world where conspiracy theories seem to be real and making the news every day. But what is the origin of such beliefs, and what credibility should we afford them? Time to untangle the theories around the conspiracies here on Things Visible and Invisible. Mick, the subject of conspiracy theories is, it's not really a subject anymore. It's something which has its own momentum, its own oxygen, its own environment. Some people would say today, in the world that we live in, conspiracy theories are coming true all the time. The words "I told you so" seem to be kind of very current in a lot of popular discussions on both sides of the Atlantic. I know you've spent a lot of time debunking conspiracy theories or engaging with people who hold those beliefs. Do you think this is the moment for conspiracy theories? Do you think they have come at last to fruition?
I think we're kind of living in a unique time in that we have a confluence of two significant factors with that. The first factor is that the internet is kind of a peak internet. We have very rapid internet at everybody's houses. Everybody's on social media. Mainstream media is very much in decline. People don't trust mainstream media, and they never really have. But now they basically have dropped it entirely, and a lot of people are getting all of their news from the social media. Which means they're getting much more fragmented information. But then the other factor besides that is that we have an administration, the Trump administration, which is kind of in some ways predicated upon conspiracy theories. There's a lot of belief in the people who support Donald Trump that there is a deep state that is kind of opposed to Donald Trump. And Trump's kind of position has been to somewhat put himself up as the opponent of the deep state. And to do that, he needs to actually promote the idea that all these conspiracy theories are real. But, something we should be clear on from the start is that there are real conspiracy theories. It's not like when we say something is a conspiracy, that means that it's false. When we say something is a conspiracy theory, that means that it's a conspiracy idea, or a suggestion, or a theory that hasn't actually been proven to be true. So it's still just a theory. It's still just essentially a hypothesis in science that people have put forward. But there's very, very real conspiracies in history. You just got to look back through history. We know that there was the Watergate cover-up, for example, a fairly big conspiracy theory. It was the Iran-Contra scandal, the arms for the selling of arms to Iran to finance the Nicaraguan Contras, which is a secret thing hidden from Congress. So there are real conspiracies. There are conspiracies that are fairly deep within government. There are conspiracies that run in business, and there are conspiracies that are done by individuals. So calling something a conspiracy isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's something that is increasingly now the waters have been muddied. And I think in large part that is because of social media.
Well, let's take one very famous conspiracy theory, depending on your point of view, and that is JFK and the assassination of John Kennedy back in Dallas in 1963. Some people have suggested that it was the CIA that came up with the term conspiracy theory. Other people have said that's not the case. What's your view on that, to begin with?
Well, the term conspiracy theory did actually exist before 1963, before the JFK assassination. And the CIA did actually use the term conspiracy theory, and I believe it was in 1966 or 67. And it was actually after the RFK assassination. And they were concerned about conspiracy theories spreading, and so they mentioned that there were problems with conspiracy theorists. I don't think they actually used the term conspiracy theory. And they were trying to address it because they realized that rampant conspiracy theories could undermine the perceived authority of the agency. So if everybody in the US believed that the CIA killed Kennedy, that wouldn't be a good thing in some ways, regardless of whether they killed him or not, which I don't think they did. but let's assuming for a second that they didn't, then it's not a good thing to have everybody believing something that is false about them, because no one's going to trust the CIA. But you actually, if you look at the history of the term conspiracy theory, you can plot a graph of its usage. If you go back with Google book searches and Google newspaper searches, you can plot how frequently it was used. And you can see before JFK, there was a little bit of usage of the word conspiracy theory. After JFK, there was basically the same. It was pretty much unchanged. And then around the time of the Robert F. Kennedy assassination, it started to increase. And I think that was probably because, it's like 1 is coincidence, like 2 is an accident, and 3 is a conspiracy. It seems like something was going on, and people started talking about it a lot more. But you look at where the CIA's memo, where people say they came up with a theory, it fits into that. There's no blip at all. It doesn't actually change the dial. It actually started just basically slowly ramping up after the JFK thing. So I don't think the CIA came up with the term. And I think, people say that they came up with the term to discredit it. But the term itself wasn't a discrediting term back then. It was just a way of describing what's going on. The term conspiracy theory has become something of a slur in a way, simply because there are so many crazy conspiracy theories. And if all conspiracy theories were very straightforward and simple and like good theories, we wouldn't be saying this. And if we call them something else, like, suspicious theories or government action theories or something, all that would happen is that particular theory, that particular name would be the one that became the slur. So, no, I don't think the CIA came up with it, and that's just what they're called.
But just taking what you were saying there about the deep state, I mean, we can probably trace some of the skepticism about governments to the events of Dallas 1963. I know your researches are about debunking conspiracy theories or putting them under the microscope, so to speak. But just taking the JFK assassination, I don't know if we'd agree, but I mean, looking at it very objectively, the government haven't helped matters anywhere along the way. In fact, they seem to have sort of poured fuel on the flames of conspiracy theorists at every turn. I mean, just recently, as you know, there was talk of releasing all the files, and people were wondering why these files hadn't been released so many years after the assassination. Do you not see that there's a way in which the ideas of deep state are sometimes brought about by the actions of the state, if only inadvertently, in what they're doing or not doing?
Yeah, that's a big problem, actually. And the problem arises because the intelligence agencies have this basically an overclassification problem. They tend to want everything to remain secret as long as possible, kind of a just-in-case thing, and they don't really see the public good of actually releasing this information. And this is an issue we've had with UFO cases. I do a lot of investigating of UFOs, and the government just basically is very cagey about all these cases, and it's largely because they are military. And with JFK, a lot of the documents that are being held back are to do with sources and methods, like how did the intelligence service work, and relationships and diplomatic relationships back then. So they would have communications between different countries, and they would have things like spies in different countries. And even now, there's some reluctance to maybe spoil the diplomatic relationship we have with the country by exposing the fact that we had a spy in their government in the 1960s. Of course, it's been a really long time, but there's this just-in-case attitude, which I think pervades the military and the intelligence community, is like, why would we release this? And it takes some kind of political some political impulse, some political motivation, some actual push to actually get it out there. And I'm personally very much in favor of more open government. I would like to see more UFO documents, and I would like to see all the records released about these things in the past, even if they are a little bit embarrassing to the government. I'd rather clear the air. So yeah, I think that's definitely a problem. And then eventually, when it comes to something like Donald Trump saying, let's release all the documents, that obviously fans the flames. I mean, why didn't we have the documents before? Well, it's pretty boring reasons, really, but it makes for a cool story.
Well, leaving that aside, I'll come back to that point, Mick, the entertainment factor that there is in many conspiracy theories. But just sticking with this idea of the deep state, there may be sort of elements which, as you say, the intelligence agencies don't actually help matters sometimes because of the way they're structured and the way they operate. However, there's a kind of even more sort of accentuated conspiracy theory that a lot of these conspiracy theories are kind of a reverse deception, if you know what I mean, that people spend an inordinate amount of time and energy focused on whatever it happens to be, an assassination or a bomb or whatever it happens to be, instead of focusing on real issues or real problems. It's a kind of way of distracting the masses. Do you think there's any sense to that? Do you think there's any, in your researches, have you come across anything that makes you wonder that maybe the governments are manipulating as much as the conspiracy theorists?
Well, I think that conspiracy theories as a distraction is definitely a real thing. I think that if people believe in chemtrails, for example, then they're going to be much less concerned about industrial pollution. So you could argue, maybe DuPont or some big chemical company is trying to promote these theories of chemtrails, and the government spraying things to distract from the fact that they're poisoning the rivers. Or it also distracts from things like global warming and CO2 emissions. If you think the government's controlling the weather, why would you bother with that? And if you think that the government is assassinating people left and right, why would you trust the government at all? So there's definitely an issue of in muddying the waters and it causing problems and it distracting from real issues. The question is, to what extent is that being promoted by the government or by other people? We know that there are efforts by foreign countries to try to stir unrest in the United States, and probably the same with us in their countries, by promoting conspiracy theories. So you get Russian bot farms now, on the internet, promoting conspiracy theories. And in the past, there were probably Russian, what we call active measures, trying to actually promote conspiracy theories. And the government has also done things like allowed conspiracy theories to distract from real things, like with Roswell. The original Roswell incident was portrayed as being like flying saucers, and the government kind of rolled back on that a little bit, but they kind of let the conspiracy theories roll. And really what was going on there was the top secret project called Project Mogul that was using weather balloons to detect nuclear explosions, which we didn't want the Russians to know about. So the government allowed conspiracy theories and possibly even promoted them to a degree to cover that up. And we know they've done that with other things, like the U-2 bomber. Was something that would fly at very high altitudes, and pilots would report it as a UFO, and it was top secret. Not the U-2 spy plane, sorry. And they wouldn't wouldn't explain what it was. They would just say, well, it's a UFO. We don't know what it was, and they would allow this to continue. But I'm not sure exactly how much of that is deliberate and how much is just exploiting things that would happen anyway, because conspiracy theories are going to happen. And by not debunking them is essentially the same as promoting them.
But there's also, I suppose, a lot of conspiracy theories could be nipped in the bud by just greater transparency in government, would you say? For example, if the Warren Commission had done its job properly, maybe in the mid-60s, we wouldn't have had 60 years of debate, counter-debate and conjecture. Do you think there's an element where, as I say, the government really doesn't help this by dismissing conspiracy theories as simply that, rather than saying, here's the facts, here's the evidence, make up your own mind?
Well, the Warren Commission did do a fairly detailed job. They did recreations of the shooting. They had a guy trying to recreate the shots, and they managed to do it. They did a whole bunch of things, but when you have an investigation and lots of people are involved, there's inevitably going to be some questions that are kind of unanswered. There's the big issue of, was there a third shot? And there was a very tentative bit of evidence of a little noise on a tape recorder on a police motorcycle. There was probably nothing. It's probably just like a backfire or just something, a bit of static or something like that. But because you can't say definitively what it is, you get this, what we call the conspiracy theory of the gaps, where if there's a little gap in our understanding of what happened, then it's very easy for a conspiracy theorist to get in there and spread. So even if the Warren Commission did a very good job, there's still always going to be little questions. There's still going to be unanswered things. Why did somebody say they saw someone on the grassy knoll? What was that guy doing with his umbrella? And these questions, they don't get answered immediately or even for decades later. It's inevitable. I don't think no matter what the government did back then, they would have actually managed to nip it in the bud, because unless you had a video recording of Oswald doing the shot from multiple different angles, you're not going to convince people.
Well, I mean, there may be an element whereby some of the conspiracy theories come out of traumatic events, the events of Dallas 63 or 9/11. But sometimes the conspiracy theories seem to breed in sort of strange places. I'm thinking, for example, the ever-increasing debates around the Apollo moon landings, and in particular the landing on the moon in 1969. You can imagine deep state, and I know there's an element of deep state that's baked into that theory as well. But I mean, given your researches and all your time spent in this world, I mean, is there something where it's almost like a psychological way of dealing with certain events?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things there. Major events like national tragedies like 9/11 or the JFK assassination, people want to have some kind of understanding of what happened, and they want proportionality. They don't want to think that, it's just some guy shot the president and that was it. It's just so simple. It's just some guy decided he was going to shoot the president. He bought a gun, he planned it, and he shot him. They want it to be something bigger because it's such a big event. I mean, these are the biggest events in human history, in recent human history, like the JFK assassination, the moon landings, and 9/11. These are massive worldwide events, and the kind of the mundane explanations of them seem very unsatisfying to people. They think, a bunch of guys who lived in caves in Afghanistan, defeated the greatest military in the world. It's kind of an understandable kind of disconnect there. But even though that's exactly what happened, and it wasn't just a bunch of guys in caves, it was a well-funded operation. But they want to find a proportionate explanation that they think fits their worldview, and I guess makes them feel a little bit better about the world, because the fact that just the world is so fragile that just one guy with a gun can cause all this chaos is just something that doesn't really compute in their brain. And with the moon landings, it's a big event. It's going to get a lot of scrutiny, and then you get people finding these what they think of as gaps. They say oh, here's a flag, it's flapping on the moon, and there's no air on the moon, so it shouldn't be flapping. And then they ignore the actual reason why it's flapping, and then they go with that. They find these little kinks in the armor, and for a lot of people, when this happens, they're doing it because it makes them feel special.
Yeah.
To have discovered something about the world, or to know something. It makes them feel that they have privy knowledge to some actual deeper understanding of the world. If you know the moon landing was faked, but all the people around you think that it was real, then you're the one who's special. You're the one who's actually got the real view of reality, and all the other people are the stupid ones. So that's kind of an emotional attractiveness that conspiracy theories have that really helps them spread.
Yeah, it's fascinating just listening to you say that, Mick, because I was just coming to the same conclusion, that there's an element that you're on the inside. You've got some sort of Gnostic knowledge, that you know more than other people. I mean, in discussing people who hold various views on things, would you say that it's almost a psychological type, almost, or a certain type of person who is drawn to conspiracy theories?
I think to a degree it is a psychological type, but I think that the traits that conspiracy theories have, like a need for uniqueness, a need for proportionality, a need for attribution, these are things that all of us have. Like, we all enjoy feeling special, and we all like it when we know what actually happened. maybe they're a little bit heightened in some people, but anybody can become a conspiracy theorist. It's not so much about the mental state going into it. It's more about the things that they are exposed to and their life circumstances. And most people get into conspiracy theories kind of by having too much time on their hands and then discovering something. A lot of people going to conspiracy theories are young men who, in their 20s, they spend a lot of time doing this stuff, and then maybe they'll get married in their late 20s, early 30s, have kids. They don't have time for conspiracy theories anymore. They don't have time to ruminate. They don't have time for these things to kind of fester and grow in their brains, and so they fall away from them. So a lot of people just fall into conspiracy theories, and they're very normal people. It doesn't mean that you're a crazy person if you believe in conspiracy theories. It just means that you have been exposed to conspiracy theories, and if they're false ones, then you haven't been exposed to the actual explanations.
We're running out of time very, very rapidly, Mick, but just very quickly, if you could tell me, because we're talking about conspiracy theories, we know some of them are very entertaining. We love, the way in which they're constructed. But sometimes they are for us just an entertainment because we're not personally, 60 years ago in Dallas. We don't know actually what happened. Do you think there's a danger in conspiracy theories for people in general?
I think there's a danger of conspiracy theories if they affect the individual and how they affect society. They can affect individual if it's a health-based conspiracy theory. Like a lot of vaccines are very perfectly safe and good for you, and yet people have been told that all vaccines are bad for you. And that's basically a conspiracy theory because it's not backed by science. And so that can be very harmful. And if people are encouraged to spend money in certain ways because they think there's a certain conspiracy theory, then that can be a bad thing. People are sold health supplements to protect them from chemtrails. And if people think that they don't trust the government, which is in some degrees a healthy thing, but if they don't trust the government based on essentially lies and false conspiracy theories, then they're going to make voting decisions based on that and not on real issues. So the real issues that are facing the country, the issues of the environment and the economy and social issues, are not being addressed to some degree because people are focusing on conspiracy theories. So I think there's a real harm from conspiracy theories to the individual and to society as a whole.
Well, Mick, you've given us a lot to think about. Tell people where they can find out more about you and the work that you do.
Well, they can follow me on my web forum, metabunk.org, and you can find me on Twitter at Mick West and on YouTube at Mick West.
Mick, thank you very much for coming on Things Visible and Invisible.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Things Visible and Invisible. We're dedicated to uncovering phenomena that challenge our understanding of reality, from ancient enigmas and paranormal encounters to scientific anomalies and forgotten histories. If you enjoyed this journey into the mysterious and unexplained, please consider subscribing to our channel and hitting the notification bell to stay updated on future explorations. Have a personal experience or story that aligns with our investigations? We'd love to hear from you. Visit our website at tvi.show and reach out through our contact form. While we can't feature every submission, we review them all, and your story might be featured in an upcoming episode. To support our continued investigations, please consider becoming a Patreon supporter or channel member. Your contributions make these explorations possible and give you access to exclusive content, early releases, and monthly behind-the-scenes discussions with our team. Don't forget to check out our merch store. We've got everything from TVI-branded t-shirts and hoodies to stickers and coffee mugs, perfect for showing your support while keeping the mysteries close. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time as we continue to explore the things visible and invisible.